There we go. So, hello everyone. For the people that don't know me, my name is Claudia Vidor, nutrition and dietetic clinician, and I'm here today to share the space with a wonderful Beth. She joined the HA community, and we started working together approximately, was it June last year, 12 months ago, or maybe it was July
Um,
last year?
I committed maybe like to the program in October, but I'd initially contacted you, I think in the June.
Yeah, that's right. So committed since October, and finally you got your second period back and you can breathe and you feel more light on your feet. So first of all, welcome Beth. How are you today?
I'm good, yeah, like just been resting. But yeah, everything's good here. Like just waiting on period number 3, which might be in a week or 2, I don't know.
So nice to talk about period number 3, isn't it? Especially when for such a long time, period number 1 was the main goal. And that's something that you were thinking about every day. So actually, let's take a step back and let's talk more about your story. First of all, how did you lose your period and for how long?
So I truly don't really know like how long I must have had like been without it for, because I came off the pill probably about 3.5 years ago, and then I'd noticed that I didn't have a period. I'd waited probably like 8-9 months, and then I was just waiting to see gynecology and just waiting for further investigations, because at that point I just thought it was quite normal. Like people had told me when you come off the pill it takes a long time to come back, and I thought at that point like I still had some like eating behaviors, and that I was like obviously food and thoughts of food consumed a lot of like my life, and so did exercise, but I never really thought, oh, that's the problem, that's why I've not got the period. I just put it down to the fact that I'd come off the pill and I didn't have a bleed. And if I think back though, like during the time that I was on the pill, I noticed that my periods got really, really light even when I was on the pill. So it was like there was a point in the time of being on the pill where I could have been suffering from HA and I wouldn't have known them.
And when did you realize that food, meaning underfueling yourself and overtraining, was kind of the problem?
I think I just started doing more research. So I was told that I had like cysts on my ovaries from the scans, and they were like, oh, it's polycystic ovary syndrome. And I was like, but I don't have any other symptoms. Like I didn't have any characteristics of like someone with polycystic ovaries. And then I think I just started looking around, like researching, maybe looking on social media. And then I think that's when it alerted me that I thought, oh, this is HA. And then I just started reading more information about it online. And then some doctors knew about what it was, then others didn't. So I think when I finally got through to like a gynecologist after like a couple of years of waiting, like I'd gone with the diagnosis and she agreed with. So I think that was, yeah, just through a lot of looking on social media and reading around.
Mm-hmm. And I remember, oh, sorry if I interrupted you, but I remember that also when we started talking, you came to me, you had one period, and I think that was in June last year, and then it didn't come back. And can you tell us more about what happened at that time?
Yeah, so probably about a year or so before I got that period back, I was actively trying on my own to period back. From the research that I'd done, I was following like an influencer who was on a weight gain journey, and I know that one of her videos was about how she gained a period back. And I was kind of like trying to gain weight, but at this point I was still doing quite a lot of steps, doing the same amounts of exercise. I'd upped my food, but the exercise was very much like still daily and very intense. So in the June, I think I must have been doing it like for a year on my own by that point, and I thought I'd contacted you, and then like the next day it came and I was like, oh, I don't need the support anymore. And then for around that time I moved, we got our house, and I moved house, and I thought, oh, it's just like the stress, it's a lot of factors playing into it, it'll come back when it's ready. And then it just never really came back. And then I was like, really in my mind thought, I need to go even further, like I need to be committed. And the main thing for me was I felt like I was on my own. I felt like no one really understood what I was going through. And I think that's why in the end I was like, I need a community of people around me, and that's what the HA community gave me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when we started working together. You joined the HA community. You show up for almost every single call, which was fantastic because you brought such a beautiful and positive energy. And you have always been one of the most supported ladies in the community. So it has been such a pleasure having you. And I feel very, very, very sad that obviously now you will possibly move along with the rest of your life, which is fair enough. But can you tell me more about your frustrations at that time? Because fair enough, you knew that you didn't have a period, and that was an alarm flag, alarm bell or a red flag. But what else was going on to you that you kind of were getting really tired about?
Yeah, so I was in quite a stressful job as well, and it meant that I was weighing babies as part of my job, and I was carrying like the scales on my back, and I had like a really bad back all the time, and I just felt like worked to the bone, like I was walking everywhere, and I think like I was feeling a lot of stress and pressure from my job. So part of me was like blaming that as a reason why that I'd not got my period back. I was saying like, oh, if I just had a period of time away from work where I could rest and really recoup, then I'm sure it'll come back. So that was one line of thought. I was still I was sort of thinking like, why me? Why do I have to cut my exercise down? Why do I have to like, I felt sort of embarrassed like in some situations where like I was if it had been like 3 hours and I'd been needing to eat something and other people around me didn't, and sort of sometimes it caused like a few issues where like other people weren't ready to eat, and they would say things like, oh, I'm sure you don't need to eat again, and just comments like that. So it kind of got me frustrated that I felt like I was different, and that I was the one who was like having to make all these changes, whereas other people around me could eat less, exercise as much as they wanted, and their jobs weren't causing them stress that was affecting the body. So I just felt a bit frustrated at like that why me kind of thoughts.
Which is very normal anyway, because especially if you look at social media nowadays, it seems that every single woman can exercise to an extreme and eat very little food and still having regular periods. And most of the women on the internet nowadays, they are also hormones expert. So obviously there is that why me component. Why can't I be just normal, you know, getting the period while exercising and eating the food that I want? And I remember that when you came to me, there was really that big frustration piece that you were experiencing some level of anxiety. There was the loneliness factor, and there was also the unhappiness in general, also with the kind of job that you were doing and how you were feeling overall. And that's something that completely shifted. And I can say that you almost bloomed in a space of 6 months. During those 6 months, you didn't even get your first period, but you were just changing as a person. And then you got to a place where every single time that you jumped on the call, you were radiant. You had that glowing on you. And obviously, lo and behold, just a couple of weeks after one of the last call, you got your period back. And that was pretty exciting. So, well, before we talk about your first period, can you tell us more about the experience in the HA community and how it did help you?
Yeah, so I think it was just like going on and like having an environment where like people understand what you're going through, because so many people, like you say on social media, they think they're experts, or like they talk about, oh, I'm on my period, it's like, and then I almost felt jealous like looking at other people online who were like having it and I didn't have it. But then just understanding that like I'm not alone in the situation. the group calls helped because I felt like if I was like struggling with anything, the group calls really made me think, and like each week we had something different that we covered, and I think it helped around like challenges as well, because around the exercise front, like at one point we did a challenge where like we were focusing more on like Pilates and yoga as opposed to like doing more high intensity exercise. And just having like a group of women who like you could like express your worries to, but also like give them some tips and hints on like things that you'd tried yourself, and sort of like just to bounce off one another. And that's what I really liked about it.
And then you got to a point where you decided to create your own challenge. After you got your first period, you actually started to get really honest with yourself, and you identified that there were a few things that were not perfect as yet, even though nothing is going to be perfect in the end. But there was a voice in the back of your head that started telling you, Beth, it's better if you actually challenge yourself a little bit more. So can you tell us more about your latest challenge, the one that you have created and shared in the community?
Yeah, so my latest challenge is just, I realized that I thought that I'd conquered like my fear foods, but I sort of thought, if I'm going to be really honest with myself, when I've had the fear foods, I've just kind of maybe pulled back on something else during the day, or like unconsciously restricted, or maybe like done a longer walk or something like that. And I thought, right, I need to challenge these different fear foods without like compensating or changing the way the rest of my day is. So just been like posting on the group so pictures of things that I've been having. So like pizza's not really a fear food anymore. Like I can eat the whole pizza without thinking, oh, why don't I share it with my partner and we have half a pizza and half a salad. That's not what we do anymore. Just things like ice cream, like during the day, like I think I got to the point where I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have it at that time because it might spike my blood sugar and then I'll be hungry again. So it's just little things like that I've changed, where like I allow it at a different time rather than like at the end of the day, like wait until the end of the day to have it. So yeah, like pastries as well, the same thing with like the blood sugar spike. Like I'd got it in my head that I needed every meal to be like one that maintained my blood sugar levels and helped me throughout the day, whilst I acknowledge that that's obviously important, like, but as a general thing, it shouldn't stop me from like having other foods for like a change.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned also saving the food at the end of the day, because it's such a common trait of hypothalamic amenorrhea, where there is the saving of energy throughout the day, which brings the lack of energy availability to then finally indulge in some of the food that you like only after dinner, for example. Is that something that you experienced back in the past?
I think I did, yeah. Like I'd say at the height of like my eating eating disorder, what I used to do is at the weekend, like I'd go out for what I'd class as a big breakfast, and then I would like not eat until dinner time. Like I would spend all day, and like my partner used to say to me like, oh, you seem to eat less at the weekend, or like I want lunch, why do you not want lunch, kind of thing. And like he obviously now recognizes what I was like going through back then, but I used to like really save to the end of the day. And I think because it was a big breakfast, I'd tell myself, oh, that's enough for 2 meals. And those kind of behaviors. Same, like I said, with dessert, like I would wait to have ice cream in the evening. Like I wouldn't have anything that was dessert like during the day. Now I'd say that I probably eat more like during the day than I do in the evening, because I'm like eating like 2 breakfasts. I'm eating a substantial lunch, so like a lot of my food, I feel I need the energy more like during the day. Obviously still eat in the evening a proper meal, but like I've realized that I don't have to wait till the end of the day I need to keep my overall energy sustained.
Absolutely, especially with the kind of job that you do, and considering that you have a hectic social life and you just enjoy having fun. Big question for you, Beth. Were you afraid of gaining weight?
Yeah, very afraid. Like, and I think this is something that's only properly hit me probably the past few months, because for a long time, yes, I gained weight, but things were still fitting me. And it was only the past like 3 or so months that the clothes that I had before like no longer fit me. So I think that was quite a challenge just to adapt to, and think like, obviously I now need to get new clothes, because I felt like before I was getting away with it. But now that I don't sort of associate any there's no pull towards the number on the scale, because for a long time I thought if I got over X amount, then that's the end of the world. Whereas started accepting that this is where I'm at now. And I never believed it when like you used to say to me, oh, like once you get to a certain time, you might just stay around that time. And like most women can maintain their weight once they get to a happy stage. And I feel like I'm at that stage. So it's a weird thing to, oh, like, I'm not going to keep going.
Yeah. And may I ask you, sorry, I interrupted you.
I'm still eating the same. I'm still eating every 3 hours. I'm still eating my double breakfast. Nothing's changed.
And that's really important to underline, because you went from having 2 meals a day, like for example, the brunch in the morning and dinner at night, and being very conscious about the type of foods that you were choosing, to then eating multiple times a day, because obviously you need to feed yourself, feed your body, to the point that sometimes you need to have a couple of breakfasts. And only recently you felt the need to actually change your clothing. So it means that possibly until now your body was more or less on a very similar size. And I find that it's really important to share this message, because lots of women, they don't even start the journey because they're afraid they will need to gain 20 kilos, 30 kilos, that they're not even going to recognize themselves. And I have a very important question for you, Beth. Do you find that the fear of gaining weight was possibly even worse than the actual weight gain?
Yeah, like the fear that it would never stop was something that was in my mind a lot. Like the actual weight gain, like if I think about everything else that it's brought me, for example, like other physical signs, like I'm no longer cold, like my blood pressure's normal now. I always just thought, oh, I'm always going to have low blood pressure, but that's not the case. Like my iron's kind of stabilized out, like all the physiological signs that you would kind of look for have restored. So if I think about it in a sense of what else has happened to my body, obviously the period as well, I'm like, it's much more, I feel much more at ease with it.
Absolutely. And I think that there is also another thing that we really need to mention, because yes, you increase your calories, yes, you gain a little bit of weight, and yes, you got your period back. But there is also something else that we have been working on through the one-on-one and the community, and was also your sense of self-worth. And you went from saying yes to all the things that you didn't really want to engage with, to a place of improving your relationship, being true to yourself, and even changing job. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so like I was in the health service before, and I was a health visitor, which was quite hectic. I loved the job, but I just didn't like the pressure and the stress of it, and obviously carrying the scales on my back and the amount of walking that I did in the job as well. So I'd sort of done my master's with the view to teaching and lecturing in the future. So when I got a job in lecturing, I was really happy. I had my 2 months notice to work, and I was like, okay, there's finally like a point where this is going to end. And then I started my job in February, and like since then I've just felt appreciated. I felt that I have more of a voice, like I don't have to say yes to everything. I've just sort of been at first I was like, I feel like this is too good to be true, but as I've got along, like I know that it's just a different environment, and it took me a while to sort of realize that I deserve this, like everything that I was getting from this new job. But now I'm in a place where I just feel like calm, and like the teaching's amazing, and I'm not like physically under stress anymore. And then I think this fed into like my home life as well, because when I was in stress with my other job, I'd come home and I'd be really OCD with like the cleaning, and I wouldn't sit down. Whereas now when I come home from work, I can relax much more easily. So I think I've noticed that difference as well.
I'm gonna start to giggle now because I remember the one time you sent me a message, or it was during a group call, and you said, so I came home and I didn't hoover for 20 minutes. And when we look back, like in hindsight, it sounds so incredible that was your life just 6 months ago, and now it has changed in so many ways, which is why I titled this live Beth Come Back, because it's not only the period coming back, but it's also you have made a comeback in life in general, and it reflects to everything that you post online. But also if you're, for all the ladies that are watching this video live, you can see the glow on Beth's face, which is incredible. So can you tell us more about the first period?
Yeah, so when it came out, it was kind of like, it came like the night I got like a bit of the brown spotting, and I was like, oh no, that's not it. My eyes are deceiving me. Like, and I went to sleep, and then in the morning, like I woke up really early at like 5 in the morning, and I could feel like obviously the cramps and like it starting to come. And then I went to the toilet, and then obviously it was there. And then I sort of tried going back to sleep for a couple of hours, but I couldn't get back to sleep because I was like, oh, I need to check to see if it's still there. So I was doing that, and then obviously it came in full flow. Like my first period was I think 5 days long, and then my second one was a bit longer. It was more like 6 or 7. So yeah, but yeah, my first one, I think it was like, I was so relieved when it came, but then slowly after I started to focus on period 2, which maybe took away like the joy a little bit. But yeah, it was such a relief. And then I felt obviously more relieved when period 2 came.
Unfortunately, that's part of the human behavior. We wait for such a long time for achieving a goal, and then as soon as we get there, the dopamine effect kicks in and we start looking for the next goal. But I think that also being part of the community between the 2 periods was really important for you, because you got to a point where the first 3 weeks were kind of okay after your first period, but then after the week 4 and week 5, you started to feel really unsure, and you started to doubt yourself, also based on past experience, based on the only period that you had 12 months before. Can you tell us more about that frustration as well?
Yeah, like, and then I started to even like, I think my like thoughts about my body were really like bad during this time as well, because I was obviously accepting of my new body when my period was there and there was something to show for it, but I think I was just giving myself a hard time generally, and like I was then just like, oh, it's not going to happen, like it was kind of like this negative voice in my head saying, oh, you shouldn't have told anyone because now it's embarrassing if you don't get the second one. And I felt like really embarrassed. Like I remember saying to you that I didn't want to go on the group calls because I was so used to like celebrating other women, and I was like, I just don't feel like I can. And that was really hard to admit that as well, because I was like, I always wanted to like show up and be there for other women, but I just didn't feel like I could. But I guess I showed up to the call and I just felt better, and like in general I just started to believe in myself again. I started repeating some positive mantras to myself, and I think that really did help as well. And just it was more just the belief like that I can do it. And then one of the girls on the group call as well said, oh, that's normal. In a book it says that the average for the second period is around like 50 days. So I was like, oh, I can stop worrying now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are you still exercising? Because everyone
Yeah.
is going to want to know.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the big one that wants to talk about, because I do 3 weight training sessions a week, and then the rest is Pilates and yoga. But I thought for a long time I was doing like 4, and this was before Christmas, and then I cut it back again. And I thought for a long time, like, oh, am I doing too much? But then I kind of trusted the fact that my body was getting stronger. I was finding that I wasn't really getting that much like muscle soreness, because actually around the time when I got that period in the June last year, I'd only just started weight training because it was all cardio based stuff before then. So I felt like my body couldn't handle it then because I wasn't feeling properly. But at this point now, I thought my body's really like handling it because I feel strong and I feel full of energy. And I kind of just felt like it was the right thing for me at that time.
Mm-hmm. And I remember that from the very beginning, we have never had a conversation of you stopping exercising, because for everyone listening, exercise is super healthy. It's just how you treat your body in general. So if you cut down exercise and you get your period back, that's fantastic. But you want to maintain your period for the rest of your life. And that means that your body needs to move as well, because you cannot sit down in the couch for the rest of your life. And it's so great that you managed to get it back while doing the workouts that you love. And you also learn how to increase your nourishment and to really support your body from that point of view. Beth, one last question. If you had to give one piece of advice to the women listening, what would you tell them? Like, what would you tell to your younger version, to the version of you back in October and September?
Like, don't give up and like believe in yourself, because you're not put on this, like, I used to think that I was like punishing myself by the way that I was treating my body, and I was like, you're not put on this earth to be punished. Like, you're put on this earth to be like nourished and like appreciated. And I would just say, like, yeah, just believe in yourself. And I would say that this is like one of the hardest things that I've ever like done, but it's the most rewarding. So don't give up. And your body, like, trust your body, because one system at a time it will start recovering and you'll feel all the benefits.
One system at a time, but that's the reality of it. So thank you for underlining it. Beth, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And for all of you watching, if you want to join the Period Comeback Protocol or the HA community, simply send a message below. Otherwise, if you want to talk to Beth, would you be open to answering any comments, by the way, Beth?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And for all of you watching, I see you next time. And Beth, thank you for being here.
Thank you.